Okay, so I was watching this video and things that were talked about near the end really made me think about why God originally made an anarchist society. Not even just for the Yasharel, but even before then, until people started doing whatever they wanted to do. As you can see, this is when the society went from being anarchist to doing whatever they wanted to do. They wanted to have a king because all the other nations had kings. But you notice that the other nations that had kings, they just got worse and worse over time. Because for one, the people are just messed up in general. But the rulers are really only an extension of the people. And they're also judgment for the people. So whatever the people are doing at the top, the people are doing at the bottom. Once the people got a king, they were even less focused on what God wanted, and they were more focused on the king, what the king said do, which the kings were making these evil laws and stuff that are fall around idolatry and just sin, breaking all the laws. And one of the main things I'm going to focus on, especially with some screenshots that I edited in, is that once people started having other people make laws, people that were evil and Freemasons and the Lemites themselves, everything really went downhill from there. It's people weren't doing what God wanted them to do. They were doing what kings were saying was okay. For instance, people always talk about the age of consent laws. Those laws weren't even actually put in place to keep people from getting assaulted. They were more so put in place to make it to where kid victims of certain things could get charged easier instead of grown people who were actually purposely hurting people getting charged, which I talk about how the kid victims get charged with quote unquote CP, which really should be called CSA imagery, but the adult predators don't. And there's a lot of things with that. I've met many people in those situations where they're on the registry for things that happen to them. But laws are just really evil, and they're made by evil people, which is why the real messed up people never get in trouble for anything. This is why human torture is a debate, and people want to debate about who should go to jail. And also, of course people under 18 don't nobody goes to jail when they do something to them, or they don't get a long sentence, or they don't even get charged. But there's also this big idea that people have where once somebody turns 18, then it's okay to sexually assault them. And that's also really interesting. And it's you look around in different societies all around the world, and I can't really think of a society that really sees something wrong with maltreatment of other people, especially when it comes to SA of kids, or even beating on women and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that there aren't individual people that see something wrong with this. Of course, everywhere there's individual people that see something wrong with this because they've been affected by it. But it's just really interesting that when you look around all over the world, nobody really sees anything wrong with paraphilias or being a chomo or age gap grooming. People don't really see anything wrong with it. It's normalized in every society, just like how a lot of types of abuse of people is really. And it's the laws make this okay. People literally leave the US and move to Asia just to be able to assault 12-year-olds because the age of consent is 12 in one of the Asian countries. I know here it's 14, but it's just if we were under the rule of God and not kings and presidents and lawyers and judges that are all Freemasons that hate real men and love child abusers and all the other things that police do, from drug trafficking, or even the drug trafficking that's done by the military and even higher ups, doctors. If we were under God's rule, none of this stuff would happen, and people would at least go to jail for it. It wouldn't just be as widespread as it is. And watching the last couple of minutes of that video that I have in the first screenshot really made me think even more about this. like how an anarchist society really was like the original design. The power was to the people, and the laws were made by God, and the people decided who was going to be stoned and stuff like that. And I'm not even going to lie, due to how people are, a lot of things would go wrong with that, obviously, because people be accused of things that didn't happen. People want to judge women and children more than like the dudes, because of course, like, Jesus was supposed to be stoned for many bullcrap things that barely even happened or were flipped around. But like, Jesus was accused of course, blasphemy, disrespecting his parents, disrespecting his family, a lot of other things that I can't remember. And they wanted him to be stoned. And then also the thing with the lady that committed adultery. Now to think about it, I don't even think that Jesus just said whoever hasn't sinned, throw the first stone, because like he was making the point that everybody's done something bad. I think also the fact that the people who were, of course, accusing her of committing adultery were committing adultery with her, so they couldn't throw the stone because that's why they were there, to even know it happened in the first place. But it's like, I don't know, I think I should like make a part 2, but there's just a lot of reasons why kings and presidents shouldn't have ever been like created. Because all the evil that they do and that they want to happen is like normalized, and they literally make laws to make it to where people who really should be in jail and really should be on death penalty never get it. Like the serial unalivers, the doctors, lawyers, military people, etc., that are really making the drugs and selling them. People who are doing all types of things just get to roam around free. But yet, the U.S. locks up more children in many different forms of the cash for kids system. People like try to focus on juvenile justice and adult prisons when they talk about this, but the U.S. locks up more children in many different forms of trafficking placements than any other nation as quote-unquote punishments. But it's like, of course, the people who really should be locked up will never, ever be locked up. And that's what happens when other people have like a lot of control over the laws and the prison system and who can do what. In one of the screenshots, somebody mentioned a situation nearby, or where they live anyways, where a teacher was like assaulting the kids and they barely even got 4 years or something like that. But if we were in the anarchist society under God's rule, that person would have been stoned to death. But it's like, now things are just really whatever. Like on Beyond Scared Straight, I remember this one episode where like a dad got his son sent there because the son got essayed and the molester lady got pregnant, and he was mad at his kid for getting the lady pregnant. But it's like, of course, the victim gets thrown in jail. And then in some other screenshots, it talks about like the issues with drugs, but I'm not even just like saying that people should be locked up for having addiction. That's not even really what I'm saying at all. It's the fact that a messed up society with a lot of stress and generational trauma is what leads to addiction. And I noticed that people only see an issue with drug addiction, but they also only see an issue with drug addiction if the person who's addicted is homeless. Other than that, it's okay and it's normal. Well, it's normalized. So it's a lot of like biased and discriminatory stuff with that. But like I noticed, which I really wanted to make a video on this, how like people who have went to rehab and actually got off drugs, they really have this like prideful, still no accountability type complex with them. And it's so funny because like 9 out of 10 they ran back to the family system that screwed them up, traumatized them, and made them get on drugs in the first place. But it's like, everybody's situation is different. How are you gonna like act like you're the best person ever just because you went to rehab and were lucky enough to get off drugs? And I noticed that this is a big issue in the West Coast, in these mostly white areas where they've been allowed to like have drug issues get worse and worse over the years, especially starting with the whole hippie bull crap. And like I noticed people who went to rehab there, especially ones that used to be homeless, they have this complex that like everybody's on drugs because they were on drugs, and because they also live in like an environment where a lot of people are on drugs. and also that everybody ends up in the same or similar looking predicament or bad situation because they're on drugs too, because they were on drugs. And if the other person says they've never even done drugs, they'll be like, well, that's not true because I was on drugs and I was in a similar looking situation. And it seems like these culty 12-step programs make them worse, but that's a video of its own. But the point I'm getting at, though, is that in an ideal society, none of these things would even be issues anyway. If people are really, like, taking accountability, taking care of each other, loving God, loving their self, loving others as their self, not hating their self and having limerence with everybody else, and all those things that we all know leads to a lot of embarrassment. But anywho, that's why there are so many laws about taking care of orphans, being a father to the fatherless, husband and wives loving each other, not holding grudges, stuff like that. I was even going to make a video about how even Enoch had laws. And Abraham did too, and I can't remember which one, but one, or really I think both of them, had laws like about how you shouldn't go into the youth and defile them. I've even heard people in the BHI organization surprisingly talk about the laws of Abraham and how you shouldn't prostitute your kids. And there's also like some verse about male prostitutes or something like that. But really, it wasn't even really about that though. Which this is kind of talked about in my Angola was a plantation video, but people have like talked about the different translations of the Bible when it comes to like, I guess to not get banned, I could say like alphabet relationships. And I remember sometimes people would be like, well, it's talking about male prostitutes or boy prostitutes, but honestly that's still bullcrap. But the thing about the whole quote-unquote boy prostitution thing is that really what that translation would mean, if like that even was really just what it was about, would also be about like essay and human trafficking and kidnapping or slavery. And part of the reason that Paul talked about these things going on in Rome is because, of course, he also had Roman citizenship, which honestly, it seems like how at least at one point people from the U.S. would be viewed when they would go to other countries. Kind of reminds me of this bullcrap video I seen of a passport bro, and something racist happened to him in some European country, and he was like, bro, do you guys know who I am? I'm American. It was honestly some bullcrap. But that's how it was with Paul's Roman citizenship, since he was of Yasharel, but he was either born or raised in Rome, and it helped him get out of a lot of situations. But anywho, he saw a lot of bullcrap go down while staying in Rome, obviously, which is why he had to speak on a lot of the things that he did. I don't remember what point I was getting at, but another thing though is that going back to the whole orphan thing, I've seen somewhere before where someone said there is no safe place for kids with abusive parents or no parents. I would say there's no safe place for really anyone of any age with no family or an abusive family, which is pretty much the same thing, although it's very normalized. But this kind of goes into the thing that I've talked about before with the human cash cow systems, as I like to call them. And I noticed that like this really started with the pagan Roman Catholic Church. I'll link the videos below, but on my old channel, I had a lot of videos about the pagan Roman Catholic Church and how they had removed more than half the Bible. Of course, with help of the European Protestants, which there's a screenshot in here about that too, which of course wouldn't have happened in the anarchist society. But anywho, I noticed that these systems, even down to the medical system, really started in the pagan Roman Catholic Church. Like, I'm pretty sure I even have a video where I mentions the Catholic baby scandal and some of the things with their orphanages and their schools. I'm also going to put a video in the description, if I find the video, where a lady talks about the Shriner hospitals, which that could even be another part of my Gravity Falls breakdown, because, of course, the uncles were Shriners, or the grunkles, or whatever they were calling them. But anyways, the Shriners is a branch of Freemasonry, which of course is a branch of pagan Roman Catholicism. And the Catholics have always owned pretty much all the little charity stuff where they claim that they're helping people. And I mean, sure, you could get some good stuff out of it, but it's a lot of tax exemption stuff and taking advantage of people, assault, a lot of people ODing, dying, depressed, because they're just being taken advantage of by the systems. And they say church and state was separated, but it really never was, because the Catholic Church still owns everything. They own the youth shelters, they own the adult shelters, they own the, we don't really have orphanages anymore in the U.S., but they own the group home type things, they own the different Cash for Kids system placements. That's why you'll notice that these hospitals and these TTIs and stuff, they have these weird names like lords, ladies, which of course is either Swedish or Irish. A lot of them will have right in the name, like RITE, which is a part of Catholicism. I forgot what the term means, but also in Freemasonry as well. The word is used a lot in their books, so like it'll say Catholic rites, Freemason rites, and remember it's RITE. But yeah, so I'm going to hopefully remember to link the video where I talk about the Catholic scandals with babies. Or at least I used to use screenshots back then. I didn't use my voice, but that'll be in the description. Oh yeah, another thing. You'll notice that a lot of these like different human cash cow placements, they have saint in the name, like Saint John, Saint Francis, Saint Joseph, Saint blah 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 blah. Mary this, Queen of Heaven that. But yeah, if we were still in this society under God and anarchism, doing what we were supposed to do, all these little organizations that traffic people and take advantage of them wouldn't exist, because we'd have our own orphanages and stuff that are really helping people. Or better yet, we take accountability and stop pushing along the generational trauma, and there wouldn't even need to be orphanages and stuff and all these like little detention centers. And even if the parents died or something, there'd still be the rest of the family, so the kid wouldn't just have nowhere to go, or the community would step up. And recently I've been reading this book called Outliers, The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. And I noticed that on page 9, it talks about how due to the good family systems, the people talking to each other, having a community, growing their own food together, and having a healthy family system where the family lives in a house together, even back to like the third generation or up to the third generation, something like that. Can't really remember how that really went. But due to that, they had better health, and their suicide rate was little to zero, and they weren't having strokes and heart attacks like everybody else. And I'm not gonna lie, I can't remember exactly what year this was, but the study was somewhere around the 70s or something. It was like during the immigration influx. These were Italian people, and this was during the time where the Italians and other people were coming in, and the different European groups were still fighting each other. So this is before like the white label really got big, because of course people had to give up their whole ethnic identity just to be labeled off as white. And I remember the people who did this study had to argue with different doctors and stuff and scientists, because they didn't believe them, or at least they claimed not to. And they kept saying that it's impossible that just having a good family system could keep people from committing suicide and having terrible health. And it's like, that's how bad society is, to where people feel like it's like a quote-unquote conspiracy theory, as people like to say, that not being traumatized and actually having people that love you and loving other people can keep you healthy mentally and physically, but apparently that's like a myth. Lastly, I have some screenshots from some situation with the industry plant kid, I Show Speed. We should all obviously know the horrors with the whole streamer situation, and how it seems to be a lot of like alphabet pederasty stuff that goes on, and because they're paid more to do that, because of agendas that are being pushed. Of course, I've talked about the whole influencer kid stuff and the influencer family. At least I think I talked about the influencer family. It's all exploitation. Like, I remember knowing people in the past that like I show speed, and it was always other people who were also hypersexual because they had been SA'd throughout their life, and so it made sense that they would be attracted to I Show Speed's quote-unquote content. But yeah, anywho. And then a screenshot from a video of a possessed dude, and, well, I have a couple screenshots from that video, but in one of them, somebody says the whole, this is somebody's baby, and beloved baby, or something like that. I really hate that saying, and I noticed that somebody else pointed this out, but people are so used to not saying the truth to not like upset parents or the dysfunctional family system that they flip out, or maybe they really just didn't understand what the comment meant. But I totally get what they meant when they said this is funny because whatever else they said after that, because it's like, if this was really somebody's beloved baby that they cared so much about, they wouldn't even be in this situation in the first place. They wouldn't be homeless or possibly be homeless, and they wouldn't be using substances or whatever else to try to dissociate from all the trauma and pain either. Like, I don't even know why people say that little bullcrap saying this is somebody's baby. Like, it's just like, why do people even say that?